It's Thursday morning, and it is the final Thursday morning before our Virginia Beach retreat. I'm actually not going to be here next Tuesday or Wednesday because I'm going to be on the road, taking my sweet ass time, enjoying myself, just taking a nice slow trip to Virginia Beach where I will be in a beautifully relaxed state of mind to join everybody who's going to be there. I'm pumped. I love traveling. I got to say that. It's really funny because pretty much my whole life I could give two shits about traveling, and the same is true right now. But I'm really enjoying the process of getting onto an airplane, going to an airport, having to kind of kick around for several hours sometimes, and just entertain myself. Like, I have no problem with that whatsoever. But I gotta say, I find just this unlimited wellspring of joy at the sheer amount of pissed off, wrinkled, fucking sphincter like faces by the people who are traveling somewhere cool in approximately a fraction of what it would have taken them, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm traveling from one side of the continent to another in less than 12 hours. This sucks. It's like, I don't think you understand how long this would have taken otherwise. Like, at all. So I always find it really funny just to watch people and their very sour faces doing what is ultimately fucking miraculous at the end of the day. I also just like not having anywhere to go. It's really nice. Like, it's funny, everybody gets kind of bent out of shape about layovers, but I find them kind of entertaining, except for, of course, that last minute, getting to your line according to your zone, zone one, zone two. Okay, is there anybody else on zone one? Zone one. Zone one. Meanwhile, you're on zone four going, get on with it. But, and mostly because you can't find out which fucking line you're in because everybody's just kind of queued into this massive conglomerate, like one absorbed line that will eventually filter out into other lines. And you keep hoping that maybe they just won't give a shit. They're going to be like, all right, everybody just come on forward. Because it would be just as fucking organized at the end of the day because everybody already has their seat numbers. That's the funniest part about it. It's like zone one. Zone two, like, I understand maybe zone one, like kids, elderly people who have paid a lot, right? But after that, it's like, if you have a seat, get in line. Like, it kind of gets stupid after that. So anyway, that's entertaining too, including being able to bitch about something just so fucking minuscule. Like, I'm just still getting to where I'm going. That's why the last part about that I always find entertaining is when everybody goes to get off the plane. And it's one thing if you have a connecting flight where you're like, fuck, shit, I'm going to miss this flight. And you're like, and you want to get off and everybody in front of you is taking their sweet time, or they're trying to cram to like rush towards the front. The people behind you are like waiting, holding on to their luggage. Like they're ready to like grab the overhead and just run past you if they can. Like, that whole thing's so entertaining to me. I just watch everyone. I just sit there casually watching everyone. It's better than television. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It is Thursday morning, and as Virginia is coming up, I have an exciting announcement about Virginia Beach, about the tickets. In fact, if somebody is struggling to get the ticket price together, we may have a nice surprise for you in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. I'm going to pass this over to Andrew.
Oh yeah, very excited to hear that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But I have a lot of thoughts about the airline boarding process because they don't even with the zones. They don't even do it by window to aisle. Oftentimes they do it like front to back, back to front, and that's how they organize it. And that doesn't make any sense because then someone who say it's just the back first, and that's how they choose to board it, or the front first. It's just the group there, but it doesn't matter which aisle you go into. It's just where you are. So they'll have someone in an aisle seat board before someone in a window seat because that's not how it's organized. So like it would make so much more sense, in my opinion, to have the windows all go. That's zone one. Everyone files in to there, and then the middles, and then the aisles, and that's how it goes. But it's funny too because you'll have the people inching forward, and so say it's like on zone 2 and there's a line for zone 2, but then zone 3 people are like trying to guess where the end of zone 2 is in the line, so they'll kind of like be in line in anticipation for their turn, and then someone else shows up who's like oh, zone 2, that's mine. I'm like a little behind. And then you're like, where do I even, it's just a bit, no way all these people are in zone 2. So then you got to kind of ask. It's like, are you in line right there? And they're like, no. It's like, but you're 3 feet away from where I have to get in. Like there's not even space for me to get in right now. And then after the plane, oh my goodness gracious. It's funny how much we are in a rush to get places. And like when I was younger, when I learned how to drive, got my license at 16, like I was a fast driver. Like I had a what is it called? A brick foot, lead foot, something like that. And it was just like, it was just how I was. And it was very much probably an expression of just, my mentality. And as I started to slow down, it hit me a couple years later, maybe I was, I don't know, 19 or 20, that like I could just leave a little bit earlier for wherever I'm going and drive slow. And then it's not like I'm constantly on watch for cops. I'm constantly like stressed out. And it's like, wait a second, I'm doing this to myself. I'm putting myself in this, but there wasn't even a hesitation or a thought. And so anyway, when you were talking about people getting up to get off the plane, like I know all those motherfuckers don't have connecting flights. As you said, maybe a couple, maybe a few, but then you really feel them because they're like rushed and getting out. But it's like as soon as the fasten seatbelt thing goes off, it's like everyone just jumps up. And because I'll get aisle seats a lot because I drink a lot of water, pee a lot on flights. Not super relevant to this, but I'll feel it when someone in the middle seat is like used to getting up right away because I'll just sit there until it's like a couple people before my turn because I'm like unless it's a long flight and I'm trying to stretch my legs or whatever. But it's funny how it's just like it's like a Pavlov dog type thing. We hear the ding of the seatbelt. It's like, oh, get up. And then you got the person in the window seat, like standing up despite not being able to fully stand up. And they're like arching their head like this. It's like, dude, you're going to be standing like that for 5 minutes. But it's just how much we're just trying to get to the next thing. It's like next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. And we're rarely, because like when you start to settle a little bit more, when you start to relax a little bit more, it's like a flight, travel, the layover, like they're all has the potential to be an adventurous journey, but it's never going to be that if you're getting to the next thing. It's just a means to an end. If it's about getting to the next thing, and there's so much, there's like life is lost. Like that's where life is happening. And it's funny how those like travel, yeah, used to take fucking months, years to get places. And if we it can be helpful to keep in mind from time to time that that like things used to be a lot different, and then there's more of an appreciation for just the most basic mundane stuff. And all of a sudden it's like everything has a certain sparkle to it, or at least the potential to, in the most basic of situations and interactions. So anyway, yeah, I could go on about the travel boarding process because I find it to be so goddamn funny.
But that's the point is finding the humor in it, because I mean you could let it annoy you, but how much is that true for pretty much everything? And I mean that's really the trick. This is why I always say, like, out of everything I've ever really shared outside of, stretch, laughter. Laugh at yourself. Get good at laughing at yourself. Get good at taking yourself less seriously. Get good at taking everything less seriously as a result of taking yourself less seriously. That's really it. Because if you can laugh at yourself, you are laughing. You are actually enjoying yourself, and that is okay. That makes things very different. It's not that you can deal with things, it's not that you're dealing with things with any degree or with any less attention just because you're laughing, right? Unless, of course, you're laughing yourself with judgment. You're laughing due to judgment, which is based on assumption and fiction, in which case you are not paying attention at all. But if you're laughing out of a shared empathy for the absurdity of existence, then that actually can help a great deal. And you can really feel for the people around you while finding the whole thing comical. They may not appreciate that you find it comical, but that's kind of comical too. And it's not necessarily you're trying to be a dick about it, but you're allowed to laugh as much as they're allowed to be a dick about it too. That said, have you ever, so I'm going to start this over. We do movie reviews from time to time, and I usually choose movies that are insightful, profound. I'll usually recommend something, or we get a suggestion from the audience or from Discord or Patreon about a movie that we haven't seen necessarily, and it's like this is worthwhile taking a look at. But there was a movie that came out in the '80s with Sean Connery and Christopher Lambert, and it was called Highlander. And I was wondering if you've ever seen the movie Highlander.
I have not. No.
All right, cool. So it's an interesting premise for a movie. It's not one of those movies that I'm going to be like, we need to do a movie review about this, because although it's cool, it's not really that profound, but it's really cool. It's a great premise for a story. Essentially, it starts off with this young Scottish guy named Connor, and Connor exists. I think it's in like the 1200s. It was pretty far back, and he exists with his clan, the MacLeod clan, and they're in the middle of a battle with another clan, and this is his first battle. In this battle, on the other side, there's this giant Dark Knight looking motherfucker, and he's not part of the other clan. He just showed up for some reason that nobody else knows, and he goes straight for Connor, who's never been in a battle, and he kills him on the field. Later on that day, Connor comes back to life, or it could have been the next day, but he was dead as a doornail, and he comes back to life. And of course, his village just loses their shit. It's witchcraft. He's in league with the devil. People that he loved were like, you're a demon, get the fuck out. So like flogging him, they're kicking his ass out of town. So he goes and he's banished and he lives by himself, and he moves somewhere else, and he ends up meeting somebody else and falling in love and so on and so forth. Well, along comes this Spanish looking guy on a horse with this peacock feather coming out of his hat, and he's all very, done up. And it's Sean Connery. Great role for Sean Connery. I loved him in this role. And he explains that he is like 6,000 years old, and that Connor is like him. He's basically an immortal. Once he died for the first time, his immortality basically kicked in. And there are only certain people on the planet that are born this way. And so he explains, he's like, this is now your lot in life. You're never going to die unless somebody severs your head from your body. That is the only way to kill an immortal. So you find out that there are other immortals. And then as he's explaining all this, he explains, but there's going to be a time when all of us are going to feel compelled to find each other and come together, because there can be only one. And so the movie is basically about how through time these immortals find each other and challenge each other to fucking duels with swords and shit, and they try to cut off each other's head. It's a great story. It's really, really good. And then of course they expanded it into like a second part and even a third part in this movie series, and it all kind of sucked after that. But the first movie was awesome, and God, I can't remember his name. Hold on, I've got to say this because he died fairly recently, and I want to make sure. Just leave. Clancy Brown. Clancy Brown. He is a fucking incredible actor. Anybody who doesn't know Clancy Brown by name, check out his Google picture. You'll recognize his face. If you don't recognize his voice, listen to an interview, or recognize his face, listen to an interview. You'll recognize his voice. This man has been in so much, so very much. And he shows up in Highlander as the villain, as that Dark Knight motherfucker who was hunting Connor down because he was an immortal to begin with. So he knew Connor was one of them, and he was trying to get his head. So it's a great, great movie. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is because it is the foundation of the giveaway that we're about to do. And so somebody was nice enough to contact us this week. Excuse me for 1 second. Yesterday, in fact, and wanted to talk to us about the Virginia Beach retreat, because they've been wanting to go. They had the money, they had some money put aside to go. Unfortunately, circumstances beyond their control have made it impossible for them to go. They just can't do it. And it's not going to be possible for them to join us in California a few months later. It's just not going to be possible for the foreseeable future. So rather than just say, well, fuck it, I'll just save the money, they decide to take the intention of helping us at the retreat, of helping Dualistic Unity, and actually get in touch with us and donate that money towards a retreat for our next ticket purchaser. Because we have a few tickets left for Virginia Beach. So rather than put this towards other shit that we're doing on Dualistic Unity, we want to put this towards a ticket. We want to do exactly what this person requested and put this towards a ticket. And so we have decided to put $350 in a coupon code that you can use for just one person for a Virginia Beach retreat. Now, remember, if you're a tier 3 supporter, then you also can use your tier 3 supporter discount on top of this. So that's a $700 discount. If you're tier 2, you have a $150 discount on top of this. So that's a $500 discount on what is ultimately going to be some of our cheapest retreat mini retreat tickets. So that all said, if you are interested in coming to Virginia Beach, I will throw the coupon code, or I will throw the QR code on the screen. If you are not watching this in the video, then please do go to dualistiCunity.com and check out the retreat section. Here is the retreat code there. Virginia Beach. It's going to be amazing. So if you want to go to that page, check out the details, take a look at the photos. I am stoked because basically with this additional coupon code, you can come and stay with us and have all your food and all your substances, hang in a dope place, play pool, play chess, get high, walk in the beach, chat with us, do all of that, sit in a hot tub, all of that for essentially what you're less than paying for an Airbnb for the same amount of time. And you get fucking dope company and awesome conversations. It's going to be just incredible. Anyway, if you're all ready, I will pass on the coupon code, which is Highlander inspired. And somebody actually already typed it as soon as I brought up the movie. There can be only one. But it's all one word. So if you're looking for the coupon code, it's all one word. There can be only one. And you can take advantage of that additional $350 discount and join us in Virginia Beach. We'd love to see you there.
Fuck yes, I have thoughts about that movie and all that good stuff. But holy fuck, dude, the deal that this is, like, to break it down, if we were to put that, say, on Airbnb, it's like with the house is insane. Like it's a mansion on the beach with a bunch of really cool games and so much to do. 4 nights for that price with food included and substances and hanging out. Like, it would be the greatest deal of all. This might be the greatest deal in the world right now. Like, there might not be a better value for anything in the entire universe than this right now. Like, you can't make this up. So anyway, definitely hop in if you're feeling it, especially if you're on the East Coast. We're not going to be on the East Coast of the US for the rest of the year, probably.
Yeah,
we're going to be on the West Coast.
I mean, California, Colorado, Vancouver Island.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're on the East Coast, if you're within driving distance, especially, it's like, might as well hop in there, because even if you're like, traveling around, bouncing around, you don't have that many additional costs. Like, this is the greatest way you could spend your money for the amount of food. Like, I'm just like, I'm trying to comprehend it. I'm like, damn. Yeah. Anyway, there can be
karaoke. Don't forget karaoke.
Oh, fuck. Almost forgot that. I got some new songs I've been cooking with that I'm brutal at. Not good at them at all, but I really enjoy them. Runaway Train, What's Up? I say, hey, oh, what's going on? And I say, yeah, 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 yeah. I say, hey, oh, what's going on? So that's going to be one of them. Runaway Train. What was the one I meant to ask you? What was the one you sent yesterday? Our Lady Peace. Because
Birdman by Our Lady Peace.
Okay.
It's so funny because if anybody who's ever listened to Our Lady Peace, and I recommend it because they're not around anymore, but they had lots of fucking albums throughout the 90s and the 2000s. They're just great. But admittedly, when they started, they had a very different, much harder sound than they did towards the end of their career. And this is off the first album. I think the first album, it's off Navid, and it's just a dope song. It's just great. But what I like is the fact that it's not necessarily about singing ability and all about fucking passion. Like you could, that's one thing I loved about Our Lady Peace, because the dude has just a phenomenal but very unique voice, and it's because he's not trying to sound like a singer necessarily. Like he's very much just like, he just fucks with his voice. It goes up and down. He makes it like do all kinds of weird shit. He makes it crack. It's fun because you can tell it's a different, it's a different. I don't even know how they came up with the songs, honestly, because I don't know how you would anticipate that. But it's fun. Listen to Our Lady Peace is what I'm saying. Is what I'm saying. But yeah, Birdman, fun song. I've tried it once. I butchered it. So.
Oh, I'm looking forward to butchering the absolute fuck out of it. And it's interesting, and I'm starting to get more of a just a sense of fucking like being myself. Just like, and it's interesting how there's more discomfort because it's continuing to jump in like in more uncertainty because like you don't know what being yourself looks like moment to moment to moment. But if you're trying to, stay in control, not quite be yourself, have some hesitancy, it's like there's almost a feeling of an ability to, you know what you're going to do or what you're going to act like or what you're going to say or your sort of go-to shit that's there, but it downplays the potential, like the potential for you to, come up with something brand new. And so when you're talking about Our Lady Peace and just how they're so unique, like that's authentic expression, right? To be able to find a more unique perspective or a whole new even genre of music. And we see music, there's that what's the video you sent me, the 4-chord progression that like basically all music uses like the same sort of 4-chord, just variations of the same sort of thing, and it's from like basically all the most popular songs these days are that. So instead of, new genres coming up, and there are from time to time, but it's like we're getting less and less variation, more and more of just kind of the same sort of run of the mill, straight and narrow sort of songs as we go. And so, but being able and being willing to not, not look around, not look to someone else to figure out how to be or what to do or what to act like. That's when you're being yourself and you can like it's so much more exciting as much as it's possibly uncomfortable because you're not quite used to it. It's like that's where, new ideas, creative perspectives all stem from, like all creativity stems from that. Like looking around for the right way to act or the right thing to do is the opposite of creativity. It's like I want to take this and I want to make a carbon copy of it. And if we're focused on, you know, not how we're or if we're focused on how we're perceived or how we seem or trying to mitigate some perspective as if we can even know what that would be. It's like, of course we're going to look around. Of course we're going to try and fit in. But fitting in and being yourself, like can't go hand in hand. And so there has to be a willingness to not fit in and, you know, fail again and again and again and again and not even have the perspective that it's a failure. It's just you living your life, expressing yourself. And there's so much more goddamn opportunity in that than just, living a life where you continue to look to the same sort of stuff and same way of acting, way of talking, way of being. And it's continuing to be able to just jump in over and over and over. And that's what being yourself has really felt like for me, at least being myself more and more is like, whoa, all right, we're just continuing to jump in and continuing to do it as opposed to, fucking sitting on the sidelines, afraid of what may happen if I were to jump in.
Well, that's just it. I don't know. It's all it really is. I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm going to jump in. And I like the simplicity of that because, I mean, I have sat and tried to weigh the pros and the cons of. I can't even count how many decisions I've tried to weigh the pros and the cons, and then all of a sudden later on realize that there were pros and cons I hadn't even considered. I didn't even know I could consider. And it would have changed my decision entirely. That's why every time we learn something new, we look back and go, "Oh, if only I made that choice differently." Right? And it's because there's always more. There's always more to know. There's always additional considerations that aren't there that you haven't seen yet, which is why awareness is so important. Awareness is so powerful in your life, because expanded awareness in itself just means that you're operating with more information. You're processing more information. And it's not that you know any more than you did previously, but you know more of what you don't know, I guess. Like, you're aware of more moving parts. And because of that, you are more aligned with what's happening. And the greater the awareness, the more the alignment. Right. Whereas when we're lacking awareness, we get so caught up in our own tunnel vision, right, that we bump into everything. We create conflict all the time. And so that's why I would say it's not about a certain way to live. It's not about, finding the insights to follow. It's about maintaining awareness, which is just not getting in your own way. There's nothing to it after that. Like, it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Relax, be yourself. Except that's not even it. Because that's again an action against a fiction that you don't have to create to begin with.
Yeah. Well said. And there's like this, it's a buffer. It's a buffer to life in a lot of ways. My perception of myself, the way I think about myself, it's like a sort of sick, twisted comfort in a sense, despite like there not even being necessarily indicators that validate that perspective so much anymore. It's like we'll just continue to assume that. And so I was thinking I was thinking this morning, just with, fear of judgment and whatnot. Like I was editing our high and empowered episodes that'll be out some point today. Awesome episode. And Julia mentioned something about negativity. We were getting into negativity, positivity, a big theme of that episode. And you had brought up, weighing or looking at the negativity. And then Julia said something, I forget exactly what she said, but it made me sort of think of that extreme. And you've mentioned it before too, where it's like, what if everyone did judge you? What if like everything you did, everyone judged you? Like everyone judged the fuck out of you? Like, what if that was the case? Would you still live? Could you still live? Could you still live your life? And if the answer is yes, then there doesn't have to be so much of the concern. But if the answer is no, which it isn't, because it's like you'd still be here and you don't know it anyway. So there's always going to be that uncertainty regardless. But if it just hypothetically were the case, there's almost an ease that comes with that. Like if it's already happened, then might as well just keep going. Like there isn't so much of a concern because, like, throughout I've mentioned it before, throughout my life, which used to think it was a thing I used to do, but it's very much a thing I still do. It's that concern, what's someone gonna think? And there's the desire to like avoid just avoidance, just avoid the potential of that being the case. But fuck it, if I ran into that and it was just like, yeah, no, everyone's going to judge you for literally everything that you do all of the time, no matter what. Like if you can look at that as opposed to trying to mitigate that all the time, then there isn't anything so much getting in the way of being yourself, because it's like it's already happened. All right, fuck it, I'm still here. So anyway, that's
That's the reason that, when people are talking about, like, how do I get over worrying about self-judgment? I like to cut out the middleman and just go straight to, they don't see you. They don't see you. And that's when you really come to terms with the fact that that's kind of the reason you'd prefer them to be judging you, is so that they do see you. So you can believe they see you. So you can believe it's about you at all. Because the alternative is that it's not. And then you have to deal with that. And that's another one to deal with, because then it's like, well, why don't they see me? Why don't they give a shit? And then it's like, careful. Now you're thinking about you again. Right. And that's kind of the whole point. But when dealing with judgment, it really helps to remember that if they're judging you, they're looking at themselves. Right? That's it. And I say that as judgment. That has nothing to do with discernment. Somebody can look at you and say, you're kind of being an abrasive prick right now. And if they're not looking at you as less of a person, that's not judgment. That's just identifying your behavior and maybe calling attention to it, in which case you can either agree or disagree, take in the new information and move on. Right. But judgment is when it's like, well, you're a piece of shit. You're worse of a person. You're less conscious, all that crap. Right. That has nothing to do with you because it's all based on assumptions. And those assumptions are only being clung to because the person needs to, because it's about them. Otherwise, they'd question those assumptions. And the reason they don't question it is because they'd have to question themselves. And that's the nice thing to remember, is that if you're feeling judged, they're not judging you, you're judging you.
Yeah, and it's always always that. And it's like in order to judge even there has to be some bar that you're setting. And so if someone else is judging you, they're just making up their own sort of bar and looking at you relative to that, but it's all just things that they're seeing and making assumptions about. Like it's all you start to realize that it's all just assumption. Like it doesn't exist anywhere. It doesn't exist in reality necessarily. There's expressions of it and there's ways to express it, certainly, but it's still something that you can't even know. Like you can't know, you have your own bar that you can't even be sure about, but like you don't know anyone else's bar. And so there's this fear. And so if the only thing you do know is your own bar, then that's just always, as you said, you're always just judging yourself. That's always what you're being measured against, is that self-perception. Like you don't know what society's bar. Like society's bar is your own bar, your assumptions about society's bar and the ways to live or the ways to act. Like no one else is maintaining those but you. And as you start to question them, you start to realize a little bit more how, oh, this isn't quite holding up in the way that I thought. I assumed this was gonna hold up. Like this bar actually existed out there. I had to assume that everyone else had that same exact bar. Because if that's not the case, then you don't have to be at the forefront of everything that you do. And you can just be the continuation, the process of continuing to jump in to stuff. And that's all you're ever been doing anyway. It's just kind of like making assumptions along the way. And that's, I guess, what our life can be, is like working through our own bar, kind of dropping our own bar. Because as long as there's some sort of bar, it's like there's tension in between there. As the bar drops, if the bar isn't there so much, it's like that's where relaxation is. Relaxation's the cessation of the bar and the gap between where you assume that you're at and where you assume the bar to be, because both are fucking made up assumptions. And then there isn't so much to be able to grasp to. and and yeah, you're constantly just willing to admit that you're uncertain about stuff, as opposed to just distracting yourself from that reality that you're constantly experiencing.
It's interesting because I think that's a relevant point that at some point you might want to address with people, because I know a lot of the times you use the words relax in the way I do. And immediately they're like, yeah, well, how is somebody in a war going to relax? And it's like, you're not saying take a bubble bath. Like, you're not saying like just lounge, oh, just lay back with the shells going off around you. What you're saying is that don't look at that as an opportunity to judge yourself for somehow doing something wrong in the universe, like you're being punished. Don't judge yourself, for what your lot is in life. Don't judge yourself for what you're dealing with. Don't judge yourself for the things that you've lost. Remove all of that shit, and immediately you might see the efficacy of doing so, because then you'd be paying attention to what's going on around you, highly increasing your chances of survival, and as well as your chances of empathizing and helping other people, because you don't have your head up your ass in self-judgment. But I think that that's the point, is a lot of people, they're just like, well, what do you mean relax? That's super privileged. And it's like, I think you're thinking of the wrong relaxation. Like, you're thinking about like physically relaxing. having a mani-pedi, that kind of thing. That is not what we're saying to do in a war-torn country. But we are saying that you don't need to be beating yourself up as well as dealing with that war-torn country.
Yeah, I will definitely throw a video out about that because it's just about not adding weight. It's like the situation's already heavy. You don't have to add to the weight by judging yourself for being in it, for judging yourself by how you're acting. It's already what it is. Like it's going to continue to be what it is, but it shifts. It's like adding weight adds weight. Like, and so it's not about at all like the ways that it's pitched. And I wonder about that. It makes me think of what's the They Live, and how much relaxation is kind of pitched as that, like in the advertisements, it's like, on a beach, vacation. And then when he puts the glasses on, it's like, reach, strive, achieve, be better, whatever underneath it, or you're not enough or something like that, as that is like the reality of what that advertisement is expressing. And so I'm curious how much, like with relaxation, and how much it's tied to laziness, like, because that's what I see a lot. And so if that's something that, I don't necessarily know if that's where it comes from, but it seems to be some underlying like tones of that relaxation is only like not doing anything. Relaxation equals doing nothing, equals stagnating, when the reality is that tension equals stagnation. And relaxation, because life is change, is the antithesis of stagnation. But we assume that we have to do something in order to do things. We have to tense up and get somewhere in order to do things because, fundamental misunderstanding that we're not life, that we're something separate from life, that we have a life, that we own a life, that we're experiencing life, that we're separate, that we're divided. And so we couldn't possibly just relax and let go, because then, we would die in a sense. The idea a little bit more gets chipped away at the more you relax, because it's like that's the trade-off to the tension. It's like holding on to that idea gives you something to focus on and to hold on to in response. It's like a tension response, and tension is a response to it, and it's kind of this perpetuating cycle. But yeah, I wonder about this sort of, I don't know how much that idea of relaxation being laziness is reinforced, because you don't hear much outside of our podcast, some other podcasts, like the benefits of relaxation. Like I rarely hear anyone really talk about that, because it's like it's assumed that that is being lazy, that is not doing anything, but it's a response to whatever's going on. Like you're actually far more productive and shifting, changing, growing when you are relaxed, because you're letting it continue. But if you think you're got to do something to do it, then relaxation isn't going to make any sense.
Exactly. This is what Bruce Lee was saying about being water, right? Like water is the softest stuff in the world, but it can penetrate rock, right? And it's just a matter of time and pressure, right? And that's it. Then the more pressure you put on water, the more pressure it can put back at the end of the day. And that's the point, is that we adapt in our fluidity, but in our stagnation, that's when we're basically just dying. That's where change ceases to be an organic thing and it becomes something that we're trying to desperately to control. So it's always based on our fear, our preferences, which is always based on the past. It's not an organic kind of change at all. We have a few minutes here. I just wanted to say I'm really excited about Virginia Beach, man. I was just looking at the guest list. Holy shit. We have some returning retreat members, people who we haven't seen since the first retreat, or since Colorado last year. We have some new retreat members. We have a guest who was on our podcast. I can't say her name just because, again, we have a certain degree of privacy, but she's coming. Content creator. You all know her. She's going to be there. It's going to be fucking dope. I'm really excited to have this conversation. There's a lot There's a lot that's going to be at this retreat, including, and I'm not lying, just a huge sense of relief for me. There's been so much change in my life over the last year, and it really all just came to a head in the Netherlands. And then after the Netherlands, my life, again changed. I had to move. I had to, get rid of a bunch of stuff. Like everything has been shifting under me for so very long. And it's not that it's stopped. It's just that I've found, my pace to some degree. I'm really appreciating everything that's going on, regardless of how hectic and topsy-turvy it might be. I am so fucking pumped to take everything I've learned from the last 8 retreats and to bring it with a sense of ease and calm to Virginia Beach. I'm fucking pumped. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I'm feeling. I've mentioned it a couple times, but feel like a different person in a lot of ways. And I know there's still lots of stuff there and shit there, but very excited because there's just have a much different perspective on things and what the fuck is going on with myself and just being more honest with myself about things. And so it's been an exciting journey year. All 8 retreats, I've learned so much from. Like, these are very much for us in a lot of ways. Like, this is not something where we're like 2 people who've got things figured out and show up. Like, I might have the least figured out of anyone who shows up to any of these retreats most of the time, if that's even a thing. But yeah, so anyway, super fucking excited for this coming up. And yeah,
I just got a quick private message for somebody on Instagram asking, can I combine the coupon codes? That's exactly what I want you to do. So if you go to the page where the retreat details are, you'll notice it says save $300 here. And what it's doing is it's pointing you at a Patreon code. So if you are a tier 3 supporter, that's going to be your pay. There's a $150 savings and $50 savings. Your Patreon codes are linked right there. So you take your Patreon code, throw it in the coupon code section, and take the new coupon code. There can be only one, all one word, and then add it as well. And it will add both of your coupon codes together to give you the total savings of whatever that might be. And again, for a tier 3 supporter, that's $700. You're saving $700 on what is ultimately our cheapest retreat ticket for the next little while, and in one of our dopest locations. So it's absolutely worthwhile. And I just want to say again to our quote unquote mystery donator, thank you so much. It really is important that we all remember that we're in this together. And although sometimes you can't take care of yourself, you are taking care of yourself by taking care of others. So giving them opportunities to grow and be and connect and all of that, it means a lot because it comes from a place of selflessness, which is ultimately collective selfishness. But thank you so much for taking care of us and taking care of yourself and helping to perpetuate dualistic unity. And I mean that to everybody who's coming to this retreat and all the other retreats and everybody who's listening. And I'll stop babbling now because we got Patreon in 15 minutes. I'll pass it over to Andrew and we'll see you all soon.
Fuck yeah. And I appreciate all of you very much because you're keeping this train a rolling. Whatever this is, it's it means the world. Anyone who even just checks out the podcast for a couple minutes, it all plays into that. And because we're just 2 motherfuckers doing something a little bit different that we have no idea what's next or what's to come, and continuing to just be okay with that and see where the fuck this train goes. So it's going to be an exciting journey nonetheless, because it very much does feel like an adventure, especially recently. So love all you very much and appreciate you, and hope to see some of you on Patreon in 15 minutes.
Can I get a fuck yeah?